Hello there, Sarah from 17 once again. This is my Spider-Man, or Marvel Spider-Man, Spectacular Difficulty video walkthrough. This is the mission up the water spout, and the 9-minute duration tells you that we have another one of those Spider-Man missions that's a little bit more embellished and a little bit more for us to do. I think this is the one where we're climbing the Oscorp Tower, but I could be wrong, so we'll see how it plays out. But use the traversal to move across the city, and I'm going to use this as an opportunity to talk a little bit. Oh no, I know what this mission is. This mission's great. This is a super good mission. There's lots of good fights here. There's only one part of it where the gun guys completely ruin it. Everything else is just really fun. So this first battle is a little intensive because you've got a lot of people shooting at you. So you have to really be on your toes. Once again, the gun guys, you've already heard my opinions of them. They do what they want when they want, and if it's part of your schedule is entirely up to you, which I never pronounce that word that way. I say schedule, but for some reason I decided to go the strange route. Because I always think saying shul is weird for an SCH kind of word, right? Because you don't say you go to school, like school. So why do you say schedule? I'm going to shul. Like, that's weird. Anyway. Here is the fight inside the garage. It immediately starts with two people with death scythes, so feel free to use the junction box there to take them out, and then proceed to smack these guys. Never ever mess with these dudes with the scythes. The AoE that they do is so wonderfully powerful. If you dodge behind them as they do it, they'll still hit you, so you want to make sure you get rid of them immediately. Everybody else is just a delicacy compared to those guys. Those guys are the gravy, and everybody knows without the gravy the entire meal sucks, so you need to get rid of the gravy, because you want this meal to suck, because you want to kick them in the mouth. But here come a couple more gun guys. Just be careful of them, as always. Their first imperative is to shoot you a lot. Sometimes they're quite generous with that, other times they're not. Take them out. A couple more guys turn up here. There's also going to be a spawn coming out of the elevator to my right, so be aware of that. That's really cool as well. When you spin people around like that, if there is a junction box, they will hit it, get electrocuted, and it puts the status effect on them, which is kind of sweet. So, guy coming here with a grenade. There goes the grenade. Guy with a shield. The shield guys are just like normal shield people. The only difference is they have a long-range projectile that they can do. So, they're a little bit more difficult and a little bit more dangerous, but for the most, they're nothing new. Later on, you'll be able to get an ability where you can swing kick into them, and then you'll be able to knock them over, and then you can just web them on the ground. Did we miss the elevator spawn, or did I? I must have missed it. And this is the tough part, though. When you drop down here, there's a bunch of people with pistols. One of the things I like about the pistol guy is if you get close enough to him, he actually tries to punch you, which I think is what a lot of the gun guys should do. There should be an overriding impulse to punch when you get up close, so that distance was the only real threat to certain gun people. But the guys with the rifles tend to not be as aggressive when it comes to meleeing you up close. I don't even know if I've seen them do it. Admittedly, they're too busy getting punched in the mouth when I'm that close, but they could have that capability. And then here is an elevator that releases a fat guy with a bunch of normal dudes. And I'm going to do the same thing I always do against the brutes. I'm going to stick him with one of the explosive bombs, and he's going to get splattered into the wall probably, because it's just one of the best ways to deal with him. I have no idea why that demon is stood around taunting instead of attacking me. This is the hardest difficulty, and he's just kind of chilling out. It's very interesting to see that. So, am I just going to throw a bunch of objects? Oh no, there we go. I've got the ability to chuck him. Interesting. I didn't realise I'd purchased that, so there you go, guys. The brutes will never be a problem again, because all you do is web them up and then throw them into the wall and they're done. It's so strong. If you're doing no upgrades, you'll not be able to do that, so you'll just have to go to the tried and tested, lure them to a wall, and then use your gadgets to splat them. If you're doing no upgrades, no gadgets, then you'll just have to get behind them and kick them in the back repeatedly or throw objects at them, which is going to take a little bit longer, but it's not the end of the world. And then we get to do some elevator shaft sprinting. So the first time you come here, it's almost like the game wants you to sneak up here taking out the dudes opening the doors, but I decided to run past all of them, and it works surprisingly well. I did not think this would be this kind of section, but it totally is. So feel free to just sprint past them, and just understand that each iteration of this adds an extra dimension. So on this one, there's an elevator moving up and down. I don't think the last one had that. And then the one after this, I think it's a lot of fire that's happening, and the fire is kind of an homage to the Molotovs you're going to be fighting later on. Which we haven't seen Molotovs yet, which is kind of a shame because they're absolutely hilarious. Oh, and this section right here is the part where the firebombs start happening. So you're going to notice I'm going to use a combination of sprinting and then just normal spider walking to kind of stop my momentum. And then once you do that, you're into the penthouse and we can begin the rather large stealth section coming up. So this next room is very big and at any point can start a fight. It's entirely up to you if you want to do it that way. I'm going to stealth the entire first encounter and then fight the second one. It seems like the way that the game intended it to happen. You'll also notice that this room has a whole host of items to interact with. You can drop statues on people. You can get creative with a lot of the features. I'm just going to stay pretty much rudimentary with the perch takedowns and the web strikes and using items and such. But it's entirely up to you guys. You can get as creative as you want with this. I'm very interested to see where these sections will go in the inevitable next Spider-Man game. Because I don't know if you heard, but I think that this is like the fastest selling game ever right now. It's sold more than God of War did in like its first week and everything. So the excitement for this game is kind of off the charts. I didn't realise just how much everybody was stoked for it, which is kind of cool. Because if you don't know Insomniac, they're that team of developers that have always made really, really, really great games, but they've just missed out on being that highest echelon of developer, even though they have the ability to be there. And it's really nice to see them get some recognition, because they're really good at making games. They make very fun games. That's just a fact, you know, even back in the Resistance days, which is some of my favourites by them. But just keep on doing the takedowns. The two guys on the left over there might give you a bit of problems, so you just have to separate them. One of the cool things about this game is the moment that you fire the web on the ground, it makes people move. And they move in kind of erratic manners that are quite predictable. So as erratic as it is, when they start moving, they generally will, and they'll generally move away from where you need them not to be. So it's really useful. But after you've taken out a few people, the elevator will come up and a few more guys will join it, including a brute. It's one of the parts of this game that's kind of strange. There are these mid-spawn spawns that don't really have much telegraphing to them. It's an interesting choice as well to do that. There's no cutscene that brings attention, there's no camera magnetism, it's just kind of, here's a couple more guys turning up. So you want to always err on the side of caution, because if you don't, you can get into trouble just by virtue of not knowing that they're going to do that. Unless you've played it before, and then if you've played it before, you've seen it. But look at this, human chandeliers everywhere. The stealth is so strong. It's interesting as well, because you know when it is this strong, what do you do to make it less strong? In games like Arkham, they made it so that there were certain enemies that you couldn't do certain things with. They made it so that there was the alarm system when somebody got taken away. They would make the gargoyles explode and things. They would give them collars. There was a whole host of things to kind of moderate these moments. But in this game, all of these sections are kind of the same. Like, as long as you make sure that it says safe, you will never mess these up. The enemies will never seemingly see it, they will never seemingly adapt to it, they will never change their decision making, they will always be the same. And with that, there is the comfortability of pattern and, you know, reliability, because it's a consistent way of playing, but at the same time, it might hurt the game overall in the long run, because when you get to those sections, outside of challenging yourself and being creative, there's kind of not really much to them. You could fight them though, that's definitely one way of changing how they go. That was beautiful, by the way. If that would have hit the guy into the wall like I wanted it to, that could have ended the fight and looked incredibly stylish, but unfortunately, it didn't. So this is the final spawn, by the way, once you touch the doorway. Bunch of guys turn up, so that's kind of how I deal with them. And then all we need to do is hit the door, and that's the end of the mission. I love this mission. I wish more missions were like these ones, where you get to do some fighting and some stealthing, and they've got some girth to them. But thank you for watching, and you take care now.